We're at the Festival of Media Global 2018 with Paul Wright. EdTech needs an ethical change. Why is that? Is it possible to invest in EdTech ethically?
Okay, so last 2 years we've had a lot of debate about digital, about lack of transparency within digital markets and everything else. And I think an increasing debate between clients from a discussion around effectiveness with digital marketing. And a lot of what we've seen in ad tech has been lots of people taking money out of the system, but not necessarily benefiting clients. And that's manifested itself in all sorts of things. So our belief is that technology is great, but it needs to be used in the right way. And it's ultimately for the benefit of consumers and for clients and for publishers, not for the benefit of the ad tech community in its own right, which is what it's been. So things need to change, and it needs to change in the right way. So we need to start thinking about how we use technology in the right way to help brands achieve their outcomes, whether it's brand lift or whatever the outcomes that they want to achieve, and not drive a whole load of ad fraud or all the other things that go on in the industry. So we need a step change, and I think it's beginning to happen. And I think actually it's interesting at the Festival of Media, there have been some very senior clients on stage talking about how they are trying to drive these transformations. The question then is, they drive the transformation of their client end, but then you have to obviously deal with the ad tech community as a whole and how that works from a client perspective. And I think that's where clients are now starting to get, as Mark Pritchard from P&G talks about, their hands on the keyboard, i.e. really understanding what each tech provider does and what benefit there is from that. And within that, what business practices that are needed. So ethical, transparency, all those types of things are actually questions that people are talking about now. And we've created what we think is a movement of promoting ethical ad tech, because we think that ad tech needs to get back to the basis of helping clients achieve their outcomes, not on the basis of helping ad tech companies make money, because the two things are not compatible at the moment. So can ad tech be bought ethically? Well, I think this industry is quite interesting, because as soon as a problem comes along, then the next solution is another technology solution. So let's say for the moment, if you talk to people about can ad tech be improved, then some people might say, well, blockchain is going to solve it for us. Blockchain may well solve it, but that's a long-term solution. So I think there's a lot that clients and smart clients are now doing to ensure that their tech providers are doing what they should be doing. So they check on their transparency, they check on the way they use data, they check on what margins they're making, they check on what buys they're making. I mean, one of the really interesting things for me in technology is that I think media buying generally outside of digital has a lot of accountability. Like, that a TV spot appears on a TV station. You don't necessarily know where your banner has appeared on a website, because no one asked that question. It's like, oh, well, we just bought this programmatic stuff over here, and that's fine, but no one does the detail. We have a partnership with a company called Adfin so that we actually share all the buys that we have in an independent fashion, so that someone can see all the URLs and places we have placed the ads. Now, that naturally works for us because we're ethical in our approach anyway, but it also means that clients can see what's happening, which they haven't been asking for before. So I think you can buy ethically. And I think there's a broader question from a society's point of view in terms of what type of world we want going forward, because, let's be honest, some advertising has funded fake news. Is that a good thing for the industry? Probably not. Some advertising, uncontrolled, funds ad fraud, and ad fraud is the third biggest fraudulent activity in the world. Now, we can all say, well, that's not much of a problem, we can all do better about it, but actually, when various organised crime companies get involved in ad fraud, you sort of think there might be a bit of an issue here that we need to solve. So we need to get better at doing the right things and better at calling out the bad practice. Okay.
What's the meaning of transparency? Both for those who offer ad tech solutions and for those who invest.
Well, I think the debate about transparency is that everyone talks about it, and it's no one really does it, because I think you need to define it. We define it in all sorts of ways, but 4 key areas. One is around the margin that you charge. What price do do I pay for media, and what price do you take as a supplier? That's the first point. Now, that's a relatively straightforward level of transparency, but you'd be surprised, obviously, how complex that can be, especially within very large agencies and the way they set things up. The second area, which is an obvious one, as we're talking in May, is around data. And that is about how transparent are you with your data, who's using your data, are you reusing data, all that type of stuff. And I think that's going to become an increasingly important area. The next area on transparency is placement. So where are you placing my media, which we just talked about. So I think that's really important. And then I guess there's a broader issue around general transparency around your business practices, what's your business model, that type of thing. Because understanding people's business models and also understands how they may place ads. But you have to define transparency in a much more sectored approach, I think, than just saying transparency, because it means 25 things to 25 different people if you just say transparency.
Thank you so much.
Okay.